What's going on, Badger fans? Grades for the game. Why Justin has a different take than some of y'all in a couple spots, and why, and just why we're going to get into that next, and why I don't think there's a ton of hope in one position in particular. We're going to talk about that next on Locked On Badgers.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? I'm Ryan Herrings, your host, Locked On Badgers, your team every day. That great, beautiful man over there is Justin, as always, Badger superfan, founder of the BuckyCast. Plus, he's got some interesting news coming up. I'll let him talk about that at a different point. Anyway, Justin, we have grades. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers commit $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And Justin, you weren't on the reaction show. We did talk about a few things, but the reaction shows are always emotional. Right now, we can take a step back, which is what they're supposed to be. Like, they're an outlet, and I like that. But now we take a step back. Let's look at the position. We're going to do grades. I'm going to start at quarterback. It makes sense. We'll go through each position. Let's start at quarterback, Justin. What grade are you giving Tanner Mordecai?
I would probably give him a C- for this. And I think that there was some upside there. There was obviously a lot left on the field in terms of the touchdown to Bell that never was. That would have accounted for a pick. Like if he had a 2 touchdown game with one pick and was 250 yards, we probably would have given him a B. So to me, it was a C-. Like there was a lot to clean up. We really couldn't attack down the field. I felt like offensively, it seemed like Longo was trying to push the passing game a little bit more than I think he really wanted to in this, just to get some reps into it so that there was some comfort level with it. And I think he made a lot of good decisions in checking down and taking what was there rather than forcing things. And I think that that's something that we can take that's a positive here that we probably wouldn't have seen with the prior quarterback that was here. But yeah, it wasn't great. And anybody that said, like, I'm not going to paint this. I know there's people they're out for blood with him already. And it's a little ridiculous. It's like, listen, it's a brand new offense with a guy who wasn't in the system for the last how long. Let's give him a little slack here. If he still looks like this in week 5, yeah, there's a big problem. Then he's not the guy. But this is his first start in this system with all new players to him. Give him a little bit of a rope here. Now, so C- for me at quarterback. I don't know how you feel about it.
I went D+. I mean, so we're close, right? Yeah. There's not a big. You just can't throw 2 picks and 1 touchdown.
Yeah, and they weren't good picks.
They weren't good picks. Yeah. They weren't tipped balls. It wasn't a play where a defensive back was like Ronnie Lott or Ed Reed, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's a Herculean effort. Yeah. No, they were bad picks.
Yeah.
Two things I kind of point out, and I already talked about Mordecai a little bit. I did a stock up, stock down show, so I don't want to go too much deeper into that. But 2 things I point out that I don't think have been talked about a lot. The first one is, and you said it as well, like if Skyler catches that ball, right, that second pick doesn't happen, or the first pick doesn't happen. He finishes with 1. But my thing, and what I kind of push back on a little bit, is that's going to happen in games. A receiver will drop a pass. That doesn't give you like a green light to then throw a pick on the next play.
Not at all.
But what a good quarterback does, and I'm not saying Tanner Mordecai is not this. I agree with your point very much. I'm not closing any books after 1 game. But what a good quarterback does is they rebound from a drop ball. They throw another good pass, and the offense keeps marching, right? The other thing, though, that I thought was interesting, and I like this from Tanner Mordecai, there was a play, if you remember, in the second quarter, Mordecai scrambled, and he slid like 3 yards short on a 3rd down of a first down. And everybody kind of lost their mind. The announcer said, no, go ahead first. I'm like, listen, it's week 1 against Buffalo. I don't want my quarterback taking an unnecessary hit to try to get a first. Like, I thought that was actually pretty smart. Like, conserve the body.
And to be honest, it wasn't even 3 yards short. It was like a yard short, wasn't it? And it was on their on their side of the field where we probably should have gone for it. Like I was surprised we did.
That's a whole nother discussion. And we're going to get into that.
Yeah, but that was one of those things where I was looking at. I'm like, this is Phil Longo. What are we doing?
Yeah, we're going to get into that. I have a whole coaching section to talk about that punt, which annoyed me. But to me, like, yeah, get down. Don't take a weird, unnecessary hit in week 1 against Buffalo. No matter what, we're not losing this game. You stay healthy. All right, let's go running backs. I think unless there's anything else on quarterbacks you got.
Nope.
Running backs, I'll just kick that. So I have A+.
Yeah, it's an A+. You can't call it anything else. Yeah, listen. Braelon Allen led the team in receptions yesterday. He also had anytime you have 300 plus yards rushing, and and 2 running backs that average close to 10 yards a carry, you can't really complain about that. And this is where people that want to complain about the passing game, I'm like, they knew we could just run it down their throat. They were trying to get something going in the passing game rather than just being like, we're going to run the ball 70 times in a row, because we could have done that. Based off what the defense was showing us, we could have just ran it down their throat in the first half and been done by halftime.
Well, that's kind of the point of this offense, too, is they had to open up a little bit to cover the spacing that Wisconsin has now, and that leads to great running. Like, that was part of what we talked about. You're going to see a better version of the running game.
Yeah.
Other thing I would say, because people will point to Chez Mellusi, averaged 12.1 per carry, had an 89-yard scamper. If you take that 89-yarder out, he still averaged 5.6 per carry. Yeah. So this was
for a good period of time before that, he was averaging like 7 yards.
Yeah, so this was not a Chez game where his yards per carry is artificially higher because he had one big scamper. He was good the entire game. Plus, he had a gigantic scamper. A++++. I don't know. I have nothing else to add here. I thought they were incredibly good.
The thing that I want to add here is there are people that think that this was no different than anything else. And to the untrained eye, you might be able to say that. This would not have happened in the prior offense, because the safeties would have came up. They would have been much tighter, and there would have been a lot less room to run in a prior year. We had 2 deep safety basically this entire game. And because of that, we struggled in the passing game, which we've seen NFL quarterbacks struggle with the 2 deep safety look a lot. And we didn't take the running game probably as much as we should have. If it's happening against Washington State, I will guarantee you this coaching staff will just run it down their throat and be like, we're going to take it. We are going to gut you this entire game, and we're going to run for 400 yards on you and just blow you out through the ground.
Yeah, I agree with that. Plus, like you said, Braelon caught 7 passes. Listen, they didn't do a lot of damage there, but it's nice to show that wrinkle. And
that's an easy 5 yards. I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't even get an easy 5 each time. But I think the bigger point is defense is now this is something you put on tape, and it just makes it even harder because now you have to guard laterally as much as vertically with those running backs. Again, I got A+++ here. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with receivers, the most talked about position in the offseason. I don't know if week 1 lived up to the hype. We're going to talk about receiver grade coming up next in Lockdown Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at Athletic Brewing. And I've talked about it. Athletic Brewing is changing the game in the non-alcoholic brewing game, the non-alcoholic beer game. Just like Hunter Wohler is changing the game for the Wisconsin defense. He is the game changer of the week, just like Athletic Brewing. Athletic Brewing, listen, you're talking about something that has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers taste incredibly good, tons of different varieties, 50 different styles of craft, IPAs, golden sours, everything that I like. Plus, you can do it at any time. It's fit for all times. Drink it at home. Drink it on the podcast. Drink it mowing the lawn. Drink it picking up your kids from school. Maybe don't do that one because not everybody knows that's a non-alcoholic beer. You don't want to get tackled on your way to pick up your kid. But you can find Athletic in stores, online, and at bars across the country, the fastest growing non-alcoholic brewery in the USA. So get on board. You can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can also use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off athleticbrewing.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions do apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. All right, let's get Justin back on here. Let's continue the grades. Justin, receivers. Interesting game in a couple different ways. Where are you grading the receivers?
This is a tough one for me because, I mean, the Bell drop is such a huge impact on this game. And because of that, I really have to bring it down. I thought that if I was going to say Pauling, I would probably give a BB+. I think he did a nice job. Green was okay. Like we didn't have anybody that really had opportunity. I would probably, as a group, give them a C-, and I think that's because there's a couple of things that really bothered me. The CJ Williams stepping out of bounds and coming back in, and the only reason it wasn't a penalty was because he was out of bounds anyways on the catch, which, whatever, but you can't step out of bounds. You can't, especially when you're open like that. Pauling was really the only one that did anything. I mean, as much as everyone wanted to give me a hard time about Dike, he only had 1 catch in the game. It was the touchdown.
But you gotta listen. That was
I will give him credit for it, but I'm like, everyone that's hammering on me is like, he had 1 catch. It's not like the guy went out there and had
You are digging
80 yards.
You're digging.
No, he was the bright spot. He was the bright spot in the receiving room yesterday. Him and Pauling were the two that actually went out there and showed up. But we need more from everybody in that group.
Mm-hmm.
And that means they need to be getting open. And some of it may have been that the defense was just geared towards stopping the pass, which is fine. Then we'll take it on the ground until teams start respecting the running game. Because if they're going to be a light box like we had yesterday, we'll run on everybody. And I mean everybody. Even Iowa will struggle if they don't send people up, extra bodies up against Wisconsin.
I will say this was this was maybe the most disappointing aspect of the game to me. I've talked about defense. This is a really green Buffalo secondary. Like we talked about it. They have Fuqua, the safety's really good for a MAC player. He's probably a Power 5 player actually at a MAC team, but the rest of it's pretty green, man. And I expected more. Bryson Green, they threw it to him in the flat a couple times. He never really got going. The CJ Williams thing, that's a situational awareness. Like you said, you can't step out of bounds when you're wide open. The bell drop was horrendous. So you start to look at it. What's the bright spot?
Let's look at. See, the CJ one is a big deal because you look at it this way. What if this was late in the game? We had to have this play for a first down, and he makes the catch.
No, I agree.
Now that's the end of the game right there.
I wrote it down. Like, that's an inexcusable situational awareness play. You can't, that's it. Listen, for all the hype, he is a guy who hasn't played a lot of football. That's a huge mistake, but it's not an excusable youth mistake, if that makes sense. And then, like I said, I thought Pauling looked really good. He looked fresh. He looked like what we thought he would. But I was also a little disappointed when I talked to Rajiv about this. I would have liked a vertical route to a Bryson Green and just thrown it up and said, we're going to take – because that's what teams do against us.
I think we'll see more of that going forward. I think they wanted to get clean. I think the big part of this is they wanted to come through and just make good decisions. Like, we're going to have games where you're going to have to take some risks. Let's not do stupid things in games we don't need to. But you can make the argument, make the mistakes in games that you're not going to get hurt by it, which is safe to say too. Yeah. So, I mean, you can look at it both ways.
I ended up going C- on it. I forget, what was your grade? C?
C-.
C-. So we're on the same. Let's go. By the way, people in the Discord were calling you out.
I know they were. That's why I felt like I had to.
Where's Justin come at with this DK hate?
Yeah, they were ignoring me on the game playback.
Yeah, no, a lot of people were in the chat. We'll have to figure some of this out going forward. Let's go tight ends. Obviously, kind of a difficult one to grade. I went B because, listen, at the end of the day, Tucker Ashcraft actually was second on the team in this game in receptions. Had a 24-yarder, I believe. Had 2 catches. He looked every bit the part of what we thought he could be. And in a game where we didn't really get the passing game going, to see that type of contribution from Tucker, to me, was good enough to give it a B. But it's a B with a light grade. Like, this one factor heavily into my overall grades.
He was a B+ for me. I would give the position as a whole a B, just because I don't think that they really carried anything in the game. Yeah. But he was, for a freshman, he was very impressive. Very impressive for a tight end. That he is a guy that looks like he's going to be a problem going forward.
He's going to be a beast, man. Imagine him in 3 years with Brady Collins.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. Is you have a guy that's already he basically mauled everyone in his first catch.
Yes,
they came in finesse tackle, and he just was having none of it.
That's a dude. By the way, and we don't need to linger much more on tight ends, but that's a dude. If you hadn't followed the Badgers all year, or you have no idea who Tucker Ashcraft was, right? And maybe you're watching the game with a Penn State fan, and he watches that, he's gonna say, "God, who is that 6th-year tight end there? Where did he transfer from? That guy looks like a monster." Like, no, that's a true freshman.
Yeah.
All right, let's go offensive line. Justin, where are you at on the offensive line for this game?
They were an A for me. I think we had. I don't know if we had a sack, and I think they gave up 1. But it seemed like Mordecai had sufficient time to throw most of the time. The running game, they were great. So for me, it's hard to give them anything worse. I thought that this is one of the better games from a production standpoint that I've seen from them. Now, it's going to get tougher. Like, this is an A grade against this. It probably wouldn't be if we were playing somebody that could put more pressure on them. So we'll see how it is going forward. I need to see it against better foes. They weren't really pushed in this game, but it's nice to see that they can do it. It's been a long time since we've seen a Wisconsin game look this easy with the running game. A long time.
Yeah, it was. I went B+, although I definitely get the A grade. I just thought, well, first of all, let's start with the good. Like, I thought it was pretty clean for the most part.
Mhm.
We worried about snaps dribbling around the ground, holding penalties, false starts. For the most part, it's clean for the offensive
Yeah.
line. But the snap thing, you can tell, is still like a little off,
Yeah.
right? Like it's the timing with Bordolini is he's not a center, and you can see that throwing a few things off. But overall, like the physicality of that offensive line, like I mean, they just ground Buffalo into the dirt. So.
Mhm.
Yeah, I went B plus. I can definitely see the argument for A though. I just feel like it's a little offset. We need Renfro. We need Renfro.
Yeah. He's the difference for me. And I think he actually impacts the timing of the offense.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the deal with Bordolini. That's a problem, is that ball being a half tick slower gives the quarterback less time to kind of get his feet under him and get going.
All right, Justin, let's go defensive line. I think this is somewhere you mentioned that maybe you had a bit of a different outlook or perspective from other people.
Yeah,
line. Sorry,
I'm going to give them a C. They weren't great. They didn't like. So here's the deal with the defense in general. Buffalo did a tremendous job of getting rid of the football, and their quarterback was very poised anytime that he held the ball. Like the internal clock on him, when it got to the point where he knew he had to get rid of the ball, he was like, "All right, this is going out of bounds."
You can tell he's a veteran.
Yeah, he was clearly an experienced guy who knew what he was doing, and anytime we got somebody in the backfield, he was able to get rid of it. I thought we got some guys that got into the backfield. They just were never in a good position to make a play. So they break through, but they were maybe to the right or left of the quarterback. And it was like, by the time they got to him, it was too late. Like when they had to adjust. I talked to you a little bit about this. You can see the difference in the defensive line play in terms of how they're being used. Like when they showed some of the replays, a lot of time, Paez would be going through it. He would be shooting a gap. He'd be in the backfield, but he would be washed out of the play. And that to me says that somebody's out of position. It's either Paez took the wrong hole or the linebacker took the wrong hole and didn't fill the other gap, because this defense is not the same. It's not two gap anymore where Paez is choosing wherever he reading and reacting. He's shooting a gap and the linebacker needs to fill the other side. We weren't doing a good job with that. And that leads me to believe that they weren't on the same page, because we saw time and time again where the defensive line would be in the backfield, but he wasn't in a position to make a play, and there was nobody there in that gap to pick up the running back who had a hole now. And you get 5 yards. Like we weren't getting beat on it. That tells me that, like you and I were talking about, that the linebacker's getting blocked. He's not getting up there and filling the hole the way he's supposed to be.
Oh, I went C plus. So we're not, again, too far off on this. I give him a little bit of a bump for the short yardage play. Right, yeah. Buffalo. Right. By the way,
and that's fair. They were really good in the short yardage.
Horrendous coaching job at Buffalo. Why in the world are you going to go tight and power in those situations when the Badgers, multiple times, the Badgers just kept stuffing them? When they spread it out, they were able to gash Wisconsin.
Yeah, it would have been a good play on their part to fake something there.
I thought those were ridiculous.
We were clearly selling out to stop it. So just try something to get around it.
Yeah, but I thought those were momentum killers for Buffalo, and I had no idea.
They were for sure.
But you got to give the defense line credit in those situations. Paez and Rodas both have big stops in those short yardage situations. But outside of that, here's the difference, right? And this applies to the linebackers too, from defenses we've had of yesteryear to where we have now. The players we have now will pressure the quarterback. The players we've had in the last couple of years would get the sack. Yeah. Right? They have a closing burst that I don't think we have right now on the defense line.
I won't disagree with that.
So
it'll be interesting. I think that, like I said, you and I talked. I said that the difference between this team is this is not going to be an elite pressure team. Like we could potentially get to like 30 sacks, but it's going to be a pedestrian 30 sacks where we look at it and it's like, yeah, we got numbers, but it wasn't like anybody was a lights out kind of when we needed play. There's somebody making a play. It's going to likely be against the teams that we're just better than, that they have to pass or whatever. Because if our passing game comes around, teams are going to have to throw against us and they're going to have to attack. Doing what Buffalo was doing is not going to work if a team wants to beat us. You can't nickel and dime down the field like this. It's too hard to be efficient in that. And that was part of the reason what I said about Wisconsin's old offense. It takes one play to screw up a drive like that when you're going for a 15-play drive where you're just done, or a penalty and you're thrown out. You have to attack. And that's what will happen if we start getting up on teams.
Well, so next team will attack. I'll tell you.
Yeah, they will. And that's where we should hopefully get some sack numbers in that game. Because if he's going to hold on to the football, you've got to get in the backfield and you've got to cover. And that's one of the areas I think we're probably moving to next year. I think that we're going to see a bump. There was some sloppy play in the secondary in this game.
I gotta be honest. I don't even know if we're gonna get to 30. I think 30 to me feels optimistic for a team sack number, right?
Yeah, and that could be. I mean, 30 is about roughly 2 a game if we end up playing 14 games.
And we've already played 1 and got 0.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. We'll see. I hope I'm hesitant on it, but this has been a word for me since last season ended, right? So I'm still hesitant on it. All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back with linebackers. How did the linebackers grade out? We're going to talk about that next on Lockdown Badgers, but first a quick break for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel, get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's numero uno sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday ticket with YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time in the world to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can be on everything from spreads, player props, futures. We talked about some of the futures with the Badgers. Week 1, I think, has some Badger fans reevaluating their future prospects with this team, although I don't know if it should. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, let's get Justin back on here. Let's talk linebackers. Justin, I didn't do outside or inside. I think you kept it in one group as well. I went C. I thought Cheney played well. Cheney flashed a little bit. Muma had 1 solo tackle, right?
Yeah.
If that's the star,
and he looked like he was out of position a few times.
Here's the other thing with Muma, like he got blocked and he had a hard time getting off the block.
Yes. Yeah,
and
that could be partially because of his hand, but yeah,
that's true. That is it. Listen, that's a very fair point. But there just wasn't a lot of disruptive plays. There weren't many plays on their side of the line of scrimmage. There was 1 tackle for loss from this linebacking group, which was Cheney. I believe that's true, unless I missed one from Turner. But
no,
I thought they were honestly kind of non-existent, and that's not good enough for this defense.
Yep. Petroyski was out there. He had a play where he took a bad angle, then it cost us about 6 yards on the play where he probably could have gotten the guy with like a 1-yard gain. So, I mean, overall, the group, there's a lot of growth that can happen in here where they just need to shore up and make the plays that are there, and it will make the defense a lot better. And that's one of the things. Like it wasn't a great week for them, but there's a lot of things that can be cleaned up going forward. And it was like last year with Wisconsin's defense. There was a lot of things early in the season where we were not crisp and that needed to be cleaned up, and that we just had somewhat overmatched teams early.
And listen, people have given me a little bit of a hard time about my take on Muma. Muma's going to play better than this.
He will.
This is not the high point of Muma's season. So
no, not at all.
Yeah, there's better to come here. Let's go cornerbacks. Justin, I had mine in 1 defensive backs grade, so I'll kick it to you to start cornerbacks.
Yeah, I would say that corner was probably a C. There's a couple of plays there. Maitre, I thought, was a little underwhelming. He almost got beat on that one on the fade route where he ended up, it should have, in all honesty, should have been a pass interference.
Yeah.
He was grabbing all over that guy and got away with one. And it ended up, that was the reason the guy dropped the ball. The Alex Smith, we're not used to seeing him give off that play, and that's a play that I think going forward probably doesn't happen. He probably cleans that up. So, yeah, it's a C. Listen, we didn't really get beaten this game. Like, there was nothing that really truly stung us in the passing game, which to their credit, I will say could have been different in this. They had a couple plays, a couple of touchdown passes, which were not involving the corners, were brutal. The coverage on those 2 plays was terrible.
That grade's coming up.
Yes, it is. And that's why, like, the corners really didn't have anything terrible that they had other than Smith getting beat on that 50-yarder. And that, if you're out of position, that will happen. On a rub route, you get in the wrong spot, guys are going to break big plays on you. You have to play it right.
Yeah, I'm going B with the corners. So I was a little higher on him. I thought the physicality was nice. Alex Smith looked at kind of smoke screen, got through the blocker, and I was a TFL, one of the only TFLs we had. I thought Maitre, even though I agree with you, he got away with a handsy play in the end zone there. I thought he is physical near the line of scrimmage as well, which I appreciate. And that's been the intel on him is he's going to come up and lay the wood to the best of his smallish cornerback abilities. But I like the physicality of the group.
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about Alex Smith getting beat on that kind of. It felt like a little bit of a bad read, miscommunication.
I think they're capable of being borderline dominant, and that's why my grade is a C, because I think they can be a lot better as the season goes on.
Sure. Let's go safety, and I'll start here. This one's really hard because I have like an A for Wohler. I have an F for
That's what I was gonna say. There's two different grades here. I'm gonna give Wohler an A, and I'm giving the other two guys.
I mean, I'm going to average them
D
out.
minus.
I'm going to call it a C. I'm just literally just averaging out the high and the low. I thought Wohler was great. I've talked about it. He looked the part of a big physical rangy safety who's going to have 100 tackles this year.
Yeah.
I thought Latu was terrible.
That is the worst I have ever seen him play.
Yeah.
He missed so many tackles in that game, and they were costly tackles. They were plays where we could have stopped a play for a yard or 2 yards where they ended up getting 6 or 7 on it because he missed the tackle.
And it was again and again.
And a lot of it was diving, like getting out of control type plays. Just make the tackle, wrap a guy up, put him down, or wrap him up so somebody else can help you finish. You don't have to make the big splash play. And I think some of it was, I think he was also probably out of position a little bit because there were a couple times where it looked like he just wasn't in the right spot and he had to try and get more out of control to try and make a play.
I think he's trying to take people's heads off, not literally. But he's a big.
He wants the highlight plays. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, he's a big enforcer type safety, right? He is in that Pearson mold, that Belay mode. But you got to wrap up.
He had a terrible read on the touchdown.
Yeah,
like that can't happen. Like not like that. It can't be that easy because that if we're playing a better team, that's a gimme touchdown.
Well, there was a gimme touchdown in this.
It was. But I'm saying it's going to cost us a lot more in a game going forward because there's going to be teams that are going to be consistently down there. And you can't give that type of play up. And the Braelon won the same thing. He was looking in the backfield, and the guy went right past him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you've been in college football far too long for that type of play to happen.
So I'm a little kinder on Braelon though. Missing.
He doesn't have a lot of experience in game.
And he missed all of last year, right? Like Latu did miss last year. He shouldn't be this rusty.
Yeah.
But listen, there's a couple Austin Browns in the wings if necessary.
Yeah.
You know, like there's some
or Braden Moore.
Or Braden Moore. Like there's some dudes back there. If I'll guarantee you this, if you continue to miss, and I'm willing to give everybody kind of a game one pass. I really am, because you're amped up, you're in Madison. You're obviously coming a little out of control to make these tackles. But if that continues in a couple weeks, like Braden Moore, Austin Brown are going to be playing. It's just that simple.
Yeah. They can't do this against Washington State. We're going to end up giving up touchdowns. If you start diving for tackles like that and missing, they're probably going to do a better job blocking, and they're probably going to spring guys. And that's where the difference is. You can't be out of control on these plays. You have to play cleaner than that because teams are going to exploit it going forward.
Justin, give me a special teams grade. I went B.
I think that's fitting. I think Vakos is what we were hoping he was, which is I think he's a legit quality college kicker. He's a plus kicker at the college level. Bertram's, I need to see a little bit more from him.
I thought he was okay, though.
He was okay. He had one bad punt that I can remember, but we need to see him consistently in the 40-yard range. Like, if he's going to be a plus positive for us, we need him to be 40 plus.
And Dike looked totally comfortable, which is not a surprise for the return.
Some nice returns.
Yep, I like him there. And then, like you said, listen, Vakos looked really solid. It wasn't a long kick, it wasn't a pressure kick, but it's a good start, right? Like, so I go with B. It's a very solid B. I want to go coaching with you, and it's hard to do a coaching grade, but how prepared was the team? How well did they adjust? Any decisions you didn't like? I went B. Listen, I think it was fine. I think everything was fine, but it didn't blow your socks off. I felt like the offense was a little disjointed. They were trying to figure out what they were going to do. I got to be honest. I don't like punting from the 42-yard line on 4th and 3 in the second quarter. I think that's a silly punt.
I think that it being a 4th and 3 was a silly too. Like that was a 4th and 1. He's basically a yard shy when he went down. He ended up basically on the line to get. Huh?
They called it slide early.
Yeah.
So even with a bad spot, but listen, if it's 4th and 3 and I'm on their side of the ball,
they need to go for it. And this, especially in this type of offense, this is why you have Pauling. You're supposed to be dragging him or something to try and get an easy pass play there. Heck, even throw a bootleg with him and Mordecai and drag him and be like, hey, if it's not there, you take off. Like Mordecai had opportunity to run in this game. He just didn't do it. He stayed in the pocket. And I think more often than not, that's what he's going to do. He's more of a guy that's going to break when he feels pressure than a guy who's going to like force the issue and get outside the pocket and then run. But yeah, It's hard. It's so hard for me to look at what the offensive coaching staff is trying to do, because it's like, how seriously did they take Buffalo as a threat, and were they actually trying to work on some things rather than truly run this like a game where we want to just take what the defense is giving us? Because, like you said, we could have ran for 500 yards in this game if we wanted to. So for me, it gets tough, because it's like, if we wanted to just ram it down their throat, we could have done it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Listen, I think it's fine. Again, I think people are overreacting a little bit, which I get, because it's week one. Like, we've been talking so long for this game, Justin. Like, so much has gone into it that I get, and I'm this way too. I was like, I thought it would be a little cleaner, but it's I
thought we got better as the game went on, though. We played much better. So, I mean, that speaks to them, some adjustments, that it speaks to them kind of getting the team locked in mentally a little bit more, which is a positive.
Buffalo's also not a doormat. Let's be clear here. That was a 7-win team last year. They won a bowl game. I'm not saying this to say.
I think they're going to be roughly around that again this year, if not better. That quarterback's legit for a plus MAC team.
It's a real quarterback, and they have a real coach. He's had back-to-back the best recruiting classes in the MAC 2 years in a row. Like, it's a totally fine non-Power 5 team. That doesn't mean 2 interceptions is okay. Yeah. It's not, but you're not playing Fordham. You're not playing New Mexico State, for example. Yeah. Justin, man, anything else? Any last thoughts on this game here before we sign off? Because you weren't on the reaction.
I'm just going to say it's going to get better, people. And people that are like the people out there with pitchforks already, you got to understand that this is not the NFL where these guys have been drilling the heck out of this. We should expect some trial and error. They don't have a preseason to get the offense flowing and clicking. It's going to take a week or two. What we should hope for is that the offense looks a little bit more comfortable this next week. Hopefully the passing game's a little bit better and we get a victory against Washington State. Then the next week we grow on top of that. And by the time, if we can be clicking by the time we get to Iowa, that'd be great. That would be really nice for this team. But we may not be a lights out offense until later in the season. We still put up 38 points in a game where we probably could even score more if we wanted to.
That Washington State game, Justin. That's gonna be it's gonna be a battle.
It's a lot more interesting. It's a lot more interesting than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah, that's gonna be a battle.
But as much as you were giving me a hard time about the score, I wasn't that far off. I was 4 points off on my Badger projection and 7 points off on my Buffalo side.
You did have them covering though.
I did.
You did have the Badgers covering. But listen, at the end of the day, the game was never really even in the first half. It never had the feel. I know there's some Gopher fans on Twitter that have been kind of going back and forth with me talking about how it never felt like Buffalo was a real threat.
If we wanted to run the football, we could have just run the football and scored in the first half. It was clear that they were trying to run the offense a little bit and trying to get some confidence in the offense the way they want to run it. And
I will say, though, they have to be able to throw against teams no matter what.
They definitely do. And there's going to be games where they're seeing 2 high safeties where they're going to have to pass because the defensive line is going to be good enough to hold you to 4 yards or whatever, where you're not getting a plus run where you're setting up for 3rd and short. We struggled in 3rd and short in this game. We needed to be a little bit better than we were, because if we get to 3rd and 3, we've got to get that going. And we had a lot of that in this game where we should have been able to keep the drives moving, and we just weren't.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good take. All right, he is Justin. I am Ryan. This is Locked On Badgers. We will talk to you again tomorrow. A bunch of content coming this week. I think we have a couple different interviews. I don't want to spoil one of them. One of them could be pretty fun. So a lot of content coming up this week on Wisconsin. And hey, 1-0 at the end of the day. 1-0.